अब ऑडिबल आवाज आ रही है. So let's go for a warm up first. पहले एक warm up कर लें, rapid fire. Close your notebooks. Notebooks pun. So let's go for the question answers. Get it. We start with you, Jyotsna, right? Tell me the timing of Elizabethan age. Chronology question. Elizabethan age, we did chronology. And you guys are supposed to remember chronology. 2 of you have raised hands. आप लोग थे नहीं? आप थे? Answer. (1545 to 1603). Anybody wants to correct it? Chronology, that's very important. The timing of Caroline age. Okay? 1625 to 1649. Okay, ठीक है, good. Which age is this? 1745, 1798. Pre-romantic? This one? First book came in English. Which year? Which year? Chronology. 13? No. 1388. First book in English. 1388. Age of Chaucer. Timing. बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया. ठीक है. India was discovered in? America got discovered in? ठीक है, बहुत बढ़िया. So tell me this thing, the timing of Norman conquest. Who was the king of Normans in Norman conquest? Who was the king of Anglo-Saxon during Norman conquest? After the Edward the Confessor's death, who became the king of England? Harold Godwinson. Harold Godwinson was defeated by? Harold Herrera was finally defeated by? Godwinson. Godwinson claims the throne again. And then Godwinson was killed by? Why do we call it Norman conquest? Normans came to England or England. Normans came from Normandy. Saxons came from? What was the language of Saxons? What was the language of Normans? Good. What happened in 650? 650 AD. Religion got spreaded actually. The main reason is Christianity. Christianity got spreaded. People started getting converted to Christianity. What happened by 850? By 850, Anglo-Saxon tribes started dominating all other tribes and became a strong tribe. Like technically it was Anglo-Saxon rule. Then 1066. Age of Chaucer? There were 2 wars, big wars. 100 Years' War and 30 Years' War. Timing of 100 Years' War? 1337 to 1453. One of you go just and call the office. उनको बोल देंगे देखेंगे. कुछ AC का पानी है किसका ये? ठीक है. Yesterday we have talked about Anglo-Saxon things. Now we're going to deal with Anglo-Saxon writers, Anglo-Saxon books. Yeah, please. Anglo-Saxon authors, Anglo-Saxon books की हम बात करेंगे. So this is Anglo-Saxon Part 2. Those who have joined today, you'll be getting these lectures so that you can cover up. Anglo-Saxons, and we're going to deal with Part 2. Today we will wind up. Yeah, please get in. आ जाओ सभी आ जाओ. Okay, so we are dealing with Anglo-Saxons, and now let's talk about the cultural practices or cultural history. Put the title, The Cultural History of Anglos and Sections. We just have to write down some basic pointers, then we will go for the works. Yesterday we talked about Beowulf. I'll be teaching you some other stories today. So the first thing, sections. When they came to England, sections were actually the tribe that believed in hunting. So that was actually hunters' group. These hunters, they introduced professional hunting. Sections brought hunting as a characteristic. Weapons, the first people to introduce weapons, metal weapons. You know, weapons वगैरह introduce करके आए. Then, these people were making their homes, houses using the rocks, the stones. Initially, इनका जो घर वगैरह होता था, it was like stones. Then came Normans. Normans were more aesthetic. So sections were warrior tribe, they were warriors, while Normans were more aesthetic. They introduced plantation, agriculture. Normans introduced agriculture, plantation, formation of village. Village structure form होने लगे. Small जो tribal areas थे, they started becoming proper village. Then these people were ironsmith. Mostly they were dealing with weapons. तो ये जो लोहे के weapons बनाते हैं, लोहार वगैरह. So these people were ironsmith, and they introduced the weapons which were made of some metal. Now these people were into music, painting, and other types of aesthetics. So they are technically the first people who introduced early literature. Early literature was introduced by the Normans. ये लोग ज़्यादा creative थे, ज़्यादा better थे. Sections were pure warriors. क्योंकि हमें tribals के बारे में थोड़ा सा basic understanding होना चाहिए. हाँ, no, sorry, I mixed it. हाँ, ironsmiths जो थे वो sections थे. Sections were warrior tribes. So they were into warrior things, fight things, war, hunting. Normans were creative. Normans started using wooden structures. Huts बनानी शुरू कर दी थी इन्होंने. तो wooden structure things and other things, bullock carts and all. जी. हाँ, sections were dealing with weapons, metal, stones, stone-made houses. When the Normans came, they brought aestheticism, the beauty. So technically आपको इतना समझना है कि जो drawing, painting, artistic things हैं, ये actually Normans लेके आए. Sections were not that good. ठीक है, ये point याद रहेगा. Then, when sections were there, the first language was Latin. Right on this point. When sections were there, the first language was Latin. But please remember, this is not the modern day Latin. It was old Germanic language. Old Germanic dialect. What is the difference between dialect and a language? Language क्या होती है? Dialect क्या होता है? Repeated? नहीं. Dialect is बोली. पहाड़ी से dialect, okay. और मैथिली अवधी dialect है. और the only difference we have between language and dialect is the area. Small area. Okay, regional language, क्षेत्रीय भाषा, that's called dialect. इससे भी छोटा कुछ होता है. Idiolect, language of a small group. हाँ, group of 100 people, 50 people, 10 people. So dialect, idiolect, and when I'll teach you linguistics, then we will go for sociolect, historiolect. That's different thing. वो अलग चीज़ है. So primarily remember this thing. In India, we have 8,000 plus dialects, 22 registered languages. For your GK knowledge, GK purposes, you can write down this thing. In India, we have 22 registered languages, 8,000 plus dialects. Then there are sub-dialects, वो 1 lakh plus है. Sub-dialects. जैसे हरियाणवी, is it a language or a dialect? But हरियाणवी is also spoken in various ways. हरियाणा में अलग अलग जगह की हरियाणवी है, अलग अलग है ना. ऐसे राजस्थानी, Rajasthani is still not being counted as a language. They are fighting for it, like some leaders. but it is a dialect. But then sub-dialects are Marwadi, Dhundhadi, Hadoti, Shekhawati, just like that. And there are some other dialects in northeast which are not even being recognized. बहुत सारी dialects ऐसी हैं जो अभी खो गई हैं, खत्म हो रही हैं. I'll teach you all these things in linguistics. Every hour a language dies. ये भी concept है. Now see this point. This was not pure Latin. So if they do not use the answer of Latin, they go for old Germanic language. तो ये भी याद रखना. Instead of going for Latin, they can ask you old Germanic dialect. Just like that, they'll go for old Norman dialect. And they are using it for French. So instead of using Latin, they can come with French and say old Norman dialect. Then comes old English. So by this time, there were some other dialects. We have to write down those names. So it was not only Latin and French. Primarily, they were dominating. Yes, strong languages, strong dialects. But what are the other dialects by the same time? Write down those names. Mercian. Mercia was a strong tribe. Their language, Mercian. East Midland, the early language of angels. Southern Umbrium, the language of south of Europe. Northern Umbrium, the language of border areas. The language of Kent area, Kentish. These were some major dialects, other dialects. These were some other major dialects. Mercian, Kentish, it's T. East Midland, Southumbrium. When we will be dealing with next age, Geoffrey Chaucer, he will pick this language and convert it into English. East Midland was the first dialect which became the base of modern day English. So they asked this kind of question that out of these dialects, which dialect was picked by Chaucer to be converted into a language? So English पहले क्या थी? East Midland dialect. Then it became English. Then there is a different journey of the development of language. वो हमारा अलग topic है. Clear? Done with these things? लिख लिया? Southern Umbrium, Northern Umbrium, Kentish, East Midland. मर्शिया नाम की जगह थी, उसका मर्शियन डायलेक्ट है. कैंटिश जो आर्मी बॉर्डर एरियाज में यूज होती थी, जहाँ पे बॉर्डर्स पे लगातार स्कमिशेस होते थे. सदर्न साउथ की लैंग्वेज, नॉर्थ की लैंग्वेज, डायलेक्ट्स हैं. दे आर लाइक स्ट्रॉन्ग ट्राइब्स. और भी बहुत है. फ्रीशियन डायलेक्ट अलग है, फिर वेस्ट सेक्शन डायलेक्ट अलग है. बट वी डोंट हैव टू डाइव दैट मच. Anglo-Saxon has a lot to offer, but we have to go for selective reading. Literature is big, vast. So we have to go for a smart reading. A smart preparation covering most of the topics which are not covered by normally other people. हमें दूसरों से ज़्यादा जानना है, तो उसके लिए ज़रूरी है. बाकी कोई ये भी नहीं पढ़ेगा. What if they ask you a question? कौन सी dialect use हुई है? East Midland, simple. What if they give you, pick the odd one out? Northern Brium, Southern Brium, another one, and East Midland. So you know that this language stands different. ये concept याद रखने के लिए. Now, we have talked about Anglo-Saxon legendary character, King Arthur. How many people he had in his round table? Who killed Arthur? What was the name of Arthur's wife? How many people were there in round table? Great. So now we are dealing with Anglo-Saxon literature. And there are, as I told you, there are so many stories dealing with Arthur, Arthur's journey, finding Holy Grail, who told Arthur to find out it, Tiresias. We have a story here. आपका जो first class miss हुआ है ना, how many of you missed your yesterday's class? 1, 2. It is posted on YouTube. तो वहाँ देख लेना. 2-4 classes free हैं Google Drive की. So बच्चे देख सकते हैं इसको. तो watch it so that you understand this. Now see here, we have a legendary story and a point to be noted. Most of the books have no authors. So if we have books, we have no authors. And if we have authors, we have no books. This is one of the good point of Anglo-Saxons. Good point from exam point of view. If we have books, authors are not sure. If authors are there, books are not sure. So it actually reduces your chapter. आपको technically सिर्फ 8-10 चीजें पढ़नी है. Anglo-Saxon will be done. So let's go for a legendary story. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Who is the author of this story? Legendary story? Not known. Nobody knows. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So nobody knows the author. इन लोगों को थोड़ी पता था कि बाद में नेट के सिलेबस में हमें पढ़ा जाएगा. They were just writing. At that time there was no printing press. कोई printing press नहीं था. They did not know कि royalty होती है 10% मिलता है. कुछ नहीं पता था उनको. They used to just praise the king. कुछ अच्छा सा लिख दिया. King was happy. King gave some gold. Life मजे ही मजे. Then came the first printing press, 1476. First ever printing press in England will come in 1476. Mention this thing, one of the most important date after Norman Conquest. 3 to 4 dates are very important. Norman Conquest 1066. जो Norman Conquest का date है 1066. ये नहीं भूलना, ये बहुत important है. Then the another date 1066. Norman Conquest. We did yesterday, you were there in the class, right? हाँ, भूलना नहीं है इसको, ऐसे नहीं भूलना है, पहले दिन नहीं भूलना है. 2 महीने के बाद भूलो तो मैं समझ भी जाऊंगा कि चलो हो गया, जाने दो. Norman Conquest 1066, Battle of Hastings, it should be on your tips. 20 plus questions of chronology, Anglo-Saxons, Age of Chaucer, it starts with 1066. ये याद है ना, तो आपको हमेशा क्या होगा कि if you have to arrange them in order, you can start with this. This is the most authenticated date. Because 450, 650, 850, they are supported by authors. 1066 is exactly a big war. And this war turned the tables because French people came. So in Anglo-Saxon history or history of English literature, Norman Conquest is the first landmark. इसको नहीं भूलना है. उसके बाद फिर छोटे-छोटे changes हैं. Then we talked about 1388, first book in English. Then we will study Black Death, एक बहुत बड़ा plague आएगा. I'll teach you that. I'll be telling you all the chronological details. You have to remember it. 1476 printing press came. It's a big news. Printing press आ रही है, बड़ी information है, बड़ी news है. क्योंकि इससे पहले they used to copy. Some writer would write a single copy. Then there were students. And they were like copy editors, copywriters. So they would take that book and then they would write 10 copies. Then these 10 copies were sold. Then again they would write 10 copies. So this is how they used to write. But when printing press came, it became easy to print and sell the book. And now you know the latest printers. Automatic aap laga ke chodo, next day printing hoga. So how it started, then how they started taking a note that, okay, this is the writer, this is the book. From there to current day, ISSN number, ISBN number. बीच में Times Literary Supplement आएगा, magazines आएंगी. So it is also a history of printing. That starts with 1476. So this book, it was found by researchers, author not sure. The story is dealing with Sir Gawain. Now who is Sir Gawain? A member of Round Table. Sir Gawain comes from Round Table. What is Round Table? 12 knights. 12 great लोग. And क्या quality थी इनकी 12 knights की? क्या खास बात थी इसमें? They all had their own unique quality. So Sir Gawain has a quality. What is his perfect quality? Promises. He keeps his words. So the great quality this man has, that he keeps his words. Virtue of promise. Virtue of promise. Promises are kept in heaven. सुना है? Promises are kept in heaven. Because making a promise and then actually keeping it are two different things. So this man is a perfection of this virtue. He makes a promise, he keeps it. So when the story starts, all these courtiers are in the court with King Arthur. A mysterious personality enters in the court. That person is a green man. He's called Green Knight. उसका पूरा body, dress up, it's all green. So that green man, green knight enters in the court, challenges everyone for a fight. So वो दरबार में आता है और आके बोलता है कि let's fight, हो जाए मुकाबला. So people they get, angry. How somebody can enter in my court and all of a sudden can challenge me. गुस्सा आ जाता है उनको. So they all get ready that yes, we will fight, we are all warriors. Then he says, but I have a condition. It will not be a lengthy fight. एक लंबी लड़ाई नहीं होने वाली है. You hit me once, then I'll hit you once. We will have same chance, same opportunity. In fact, you hit me first. If I don't die, then I will hit you first. He says, use any weapon. First you hit. And if then I've survived, then I'll hit you back. Imagine, what will be your mental state? कोई आपको ऐसे सड़क पे रोक ले, ये लो बंदूक, गोली मारो मुझे. And but if I don't die ना, फिर देखना. So you'll have confidence or your confidence is gone. Confidence? Gone. कि है. वो ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट है, लेकिन आप सोचो. कॉन्फिडेंस बहुत खतरनाक चीज है. सही जगह पे लग जाए तो कमाल है, नहीं तो बवाल है. अगर फुल कॉन्फिडेंस है ना, तो बिना वेपन जाके आप बंदूक वाले को डरा दोगे. लेकिन अगर गलत हो गया तो लोग मिसाल देंगे कि ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं था. People got scared because he was so confident and he was telling them that use your weapon and kill me. You hit me. I won't resist. But if I survived, I'll kill you back. So who will do like this? कौन आएगा दुश्मन को बोलेगा पहले तुम मारो? Because everybody will just cut his throat. Simple. So they all get scared that there is something serious, something mysterious. So all of these courtiers are not ready to fight. So before King Arthur gets ready, because he's the finest person, Sir Gawain stands up. I will fight. Let's see. You have challenged me. Sir Gawain comes with a sword, tries to cut his head, tries to behead him, but it all goes in vain. कुछ नहीं होता उसको. अब किसकी बारी है? हाँ, इसलिए ओवर एक्साइटेड नहीं होना चाहिए. इसलिए समझदार लोग आदमी चुपचाप बैठ के समझते हैं माहौल को. सर गवाइन को समझना चाहिए था कि बाकी लोग नहीं उठे. ठीक है, डोंट बी ओवर एक्साइटेड. सबसे पहले हाथ. ओके, यू शुड बी, बिकॉज जो कुछ ना हुआ तो तजुर्बा होगा. तो टेक इनिशिएटिव ऑलवेज. ठीक है, वो मैंने मजाक में बोला कि ऐसे नहीं उठना चाहिए. टेक इनिशिएटिव. अब उसकी बारी आती है. सो ही गेट्स रेडी. ही इज लाइक फाइन, challenge is challenge. Now you kill me. So he says, I'm happy with your bravery. Ask me something. Tell me if I can do something for before I kill you. He says, if you want to do something for me, give me 1 year time, because I have made promises to people and I want to fulfill it before I die. So the devil, the Green Knight, he says that, okay, you take 1 year, and after 1 year, you come to my area, my palace. It's far there in some valley. तो तुम मेरे इलाके में आओ 1 साल के बाद. And by the time you fulfill all your promises. So Mr. Gawain takes time. Promises made to wife, promises made to kids, promises made to friends. All those, things that he made promises. He fulfills each and everything. Within 1 year, he fulfills all his promises, all his responsibilities. Then he takes the journey. Now these are Anglo-Saxon epic. तो journey भी उसकी बहुत लंबी चौड़ी journey है. Crossing mountains, crossing valleys, crossing forest. Then he finally reaches at the mountain. There's the last mountain, and he has to climb it to go to the castle of the Green Knight. He's tired. He needs water. So he finds a hut near the area. He goes to get some water. The hut is owned by a couple. Husband is a hunter. They offer him water, and husband forms friendship. Husband dosti kar leta hai. Husband says that you are tired, you are injured, and you're going to meet that person for your promise. We have 10-15 days. Stay with us. Take some rest. Get healthy and then go. You won't be able to climb this big mountain. He says, fine. I'll stay with you guys. I'll take some rest. So he stays with them. He becomes their guest. Next day, husband and wife. So the owner says, let's go for hunting. I am going for hunting. Come with me. So he says, no, I'm tired and I don't want to go for hunting. So he says, fine, I am going for hunting. You stay home, you take rest. Whatever we will earn by the day, we will share by the evening. So I will return in the evening. Whatever I will earn, whatever I will hunt in daytime, I'll come back and I'll share it in the evening. And whatever you earn, you share the same thing in evening. तो जो तुम कमाओगे वो तुम ले आना, जो मैं कमाऊंगा वो मैं ले आऊंगा, right? अब देखो उसके बाद क्या होता है. When he is absent, husband is absent, his wife tries to seduce this man. His wife, hunter's wife, tries to seduce this man. She offers her girdle. Mention this thing. She offers her girdle. Girdle is a belt made of cloth. It means undressing. It is a symbolic meaning. So, offering the girdle is a reference that she offered herself to him, but he was very loyal to his friend, so he denies the advances. But then this woman forces him and makes a kiss. Forcefully, she kisses him. By the evening, this man returns, hunter. अब जब शाम को hunter आता है, so he has killed some big boar, some pig. He has hunted some big boar. क्या पानी आ रहा है क्या इसका, देखना? प्लीज चेक, बोर्ड पे नहीं आना चाहिए. इसका पाइप देखना. देखना फिर देखना, ठीक है. So what happens? Hunter returns, and hunter ने क्या किया है? हाँ. So जो wild pigs होते हैं उनको बोर बोलते हैं, snake. So he returns with that hunted thing. He comes and gives him half of that pig. He says, ठीक है, this is my earning. अब इसकी क्या earning थी day by the day? He kisses him back. He says, ये लो मेरी earning. But it doesn't tell him about girdle. But he doesn't tell him about girdle, which is a symbol of chastity. Which is a symbol of chastity. अब क्या होता है इसके बाद? They are fine. Then he continues his journey, climbs the mountain, finds that Green Knight. Green Knight says, ठीक है, you fulfill your promise, now get ready to die. So the Green Knight swings his sword. He just gets a minor cut and nothing happens to him. Then Green Knight converts into a big image of kind of God, a deity. एक God में convert हो जाता है, deity में convert हो जाता है. And then he tells him about honesty, love, empathy, sympathy, and good things. He says that you lied to your friend. You did not tell him about the girdle. It was me only in the disguise. So you lied to your friend, so you got a minor cut. But why did you lie? To save his relationship. So that it was for good. So you're pardoned. So this is a moral message. So these kind of stories of Arthurian legendary cycles, these were famous at that time. Got it? So why he gets a cut? Small cut, minor cut? Because he lied. But then why he survives? Because the intended target was a good thing. ठीक है? कोई बच्चा रो रहा है, उसकी चॉकलेट गिर गई है, तो आप उसको झूठ मूठ बोल सकते हो, बेटा ये लो तुम्हारी चॉकलेट जादू से. पर झूठ है ना, वो है तो लाए. तो वो कह रहा है ठीक है, कट मिला है, but still it was good for a good cause, so you have been pardoned. ठीक है? So when you're caught making a lie to bank, being a defaulter, say it was for a good cause. I wanted to buy a big house. अच्छा, इसको क्या बोलते हैं? If somebody is doing all the wrong things for a big success, what do we call it? Machiavellian character. Niccolo Machiavelli came with an idea that for the big success, all these small crimes are justified. For a big success. Okay, I'll make it easy for you. Suppose you are a king, and in a situation of war, you are left with just one option, that kill 100 people, save millions. What will you do? Isn't it a crime? So this is Machiavellian character. But to save millions, any king would do that. So है तो वो भी गलत, वो 100 कौन है? वो अभी आप में से कोई एक है. But this is Machiavellian character. For a big cause, small wrongdoing, sacrifices, all these things are justified. Now, let's go for the story, the most important one. The dream of the Rood. 2 times questions in net exam. One of the easy question was, what is Rood? Cross. One of the easy question was, what is Rood? Cross. The wooden structure where Jesus Christ was crucified. जो इस तरह से structure है ना, wooden structure, where Jesus Christ was crucified. That is called Rood. So first easy question was Rood. Second tough question was, what is the philosophy employed here? इसमें philosophy क्या है? So it is a kind of poetry that deals with 2 things. This poetry has 2 different emotions, 2 different feelings. That was the tough question. That what are those philosophies, what are those emotions? First important thing, a wooden cross. Is it a dead object or alive? लकड़ी का जो structure है, वो dead है या alive है? Dead object. But if a dead object is having some human emotions, what do we call it? This pen is crying. Pen cries? Pen doesn't cry. But if I say that my pen is crying, it's been 4 hours, everybody is using the pen, it's tired. My board is tired. Personification, very good. So here we have the use of personification. Personification. Manviyakaran. Giving human traits to a inanimate object or some dead object. जो चीज actually, so for example, वही simple से example है. और बताओ, give me an example where a dead object is given some human traits. Come again, दोबारा बोलो, शाबाश. ठीक है, good. Loss. Lost words. Lost words. अच्छा, words को आप lost करवा रहे हो. Lost world. अच्छा, ठीक है. Who is the father of lost world fiction? The writer of She. She, the woman. Great. और example दो. आसान example दो. Why to go for tough examples? See, my point is, if you have read it somewhere and you are using mugged up examples, you are using examples given by the book, it means you are not using your brain. अपना example बनाओ. बताओ. I give you an easy example. Pen is crying. Moon is pretty. नहीं. वो तो metaphor है. My phone is dead. Good, good, good. Phone dead नहीं होता है, but फिर भी है. Symbolically, बहुत बढ़िया. Opportunity knocks. वो तो उसमें door का क्या quality है? वो तो opportunity knock कर रहा है ना. अच्छा, opportunity को you are making this behave like हाँ, good, good, बहुत बढ़िया. High five हो गया तो high level हो गया. हाँ. Dance कौन कर रहा है? Flowers are dancing. Flowers are alive actually. चलो ठीक है, good, मान लिया. और चंदा मामा. नहीं, it is again not personification. Make them have some human characteristic. मामा तो एक attribute कर रहे हो आप. Clouds are weeping. हाँ ठीक है, clouds weep नहीं करते वैसे, but ठीक है. Emotions are dead. हाँ ठीक है, good, good, good. Emotions वैसे alive होते हैं. और बताओ. Okay, now listen. This is called brainstorming. Make students think. उन्हें सोचना सिखाओ. हमेशा क्या होता है, जैसे मैं कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ ना, हु इज द पिकरेस्ट हीरो, सर अ वॉन्डरिंग रॉग. 99% स्टूडेंट विल कम एंड वॉन्डरिंग रॉग, क्योंकि वो आई नो वो बुक का पहला लाइन है आंसर में. नो, यू डोंट हैव टू गो फॉर वॉन्डरिंग रॉग, जस्ट टेल मी what do you understand. So come with your own examples, find out your own examples. Remember na, Einstein ने क्या कहा था, if you have knowledge you will always find out the easiest way to explain it. पहले खुद समझ में आना चाहिए, और खुद समझने के लिए develop your own examples. So personification, मैंने आपके सामने बोला, this pen is tired, board is crying, कुछ भी, ठीक है. चलो let's go. This Rood is crying. So how it is personified? This wooden structure which was used to kill Jesus Christ, Christ was hanged here. Now it is a holy symbol in Christianity. This is Rood. Question 1, it is crying. So this is personification. कि वो जो लकड़ी का wooden structure है, that wooden structure is crying. Why it is crying? Because he was used, actually अब वो personified है तो I'm using the word he. Or it was used as a weapon to kill the Christ. So the worst thing that has happened to him. So that Rood is crying because why this Rood was used as a weapon, why he had to be the part of killing of the Christ, why this Rood was seeing Christ suffering, Christ in pain, he cries. तो ये कह रहा है कि मेरे साथ ये गलत हुआ है और ये नहीं होना चाहिए था. The first half of the poem is where he is sad. This Rood is sad, it is sad. Now the second half, this is philosophy. Of the second part of poetry is, the second philosophy is, you don't have to go for line by line reading. Anglo-Saxon poetry है, line by line जितना ही जाना है. You don't have to? Author नहीं है इसका. Author होगा मैं बता दूंगा. Author नहीं है इसका. These are some randomly written poetries. These were searched, found. Then most of these royal families, they had collection of these things. The kings used to have their own libraries. So by the timings of 1600, 1700, these kings were making these things public. ठीक है, जैसे आप लंदन म्यूजियम में जाओगे, आपको बहुत सारे ओरिजिनल मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट मिल जाएंगे, शेक्सपियर के अपने हाथ से लिखे हुए. तो धीरे धीरे मिलता गया. Then now these things actually have a great market value in black market. If you actually get a copy which is written by Chaucer, the original copy, so it will be sold in billions. और billions में जाएगी. So some of these people, they make it public. Sometimes they reveal the letters. अभी ऐसे हिटलर के बहुत सारे letters हैं, बाहर नहीं है. This man who went to London and killed this man, General Dyer, Udham Singh. There are so many speeches by Udham Singh which are still not public, not made public for India. क्योंकि वो Indian politics में issue create हो जाएगा. It will be kind of trouble, turmoil. So there are things which are not made public. But then these royal families that, okay, I come from Francis Bacon's family, I have the letters. धीरे धीरे चीजें public होती गई, explore होती गई. For example, 1660, Samuel Pepys was regularly writing diary. His diary was discovered in 1825, 200 years के बाद. And when in 1825 his diary was found, people started thinking that if this man is writing diary, where is second part? Where is third part? Because जिसकी diary की आदत होती है वो क्या करता है? वो लिखता रहता है. These kind of habits don't die easily. So they started looking for his diaries, and from 1970 to 1983, an extensive research took place to find out his diaries, and all of his diaries were found and published. 1660 की diary, final publication 1983. So this is how the publication goes. They search, they find, and they publish. 37 and a half dramas, we say it is written by Shakespeare. But if you just go for all the dramas which are actually somehow connected to Shakespeare, they are 50 plus. There are so many Elizabethan dramas which are not having any authentication. कई ड्रामा हैं जैसे Arden of Faversham, one of the famous story, a wife killed her husband. जैसे शेक्सपियर ने लिखा है. क्यों? क्योंकि कोई confirmation नहीं है तो शेक्सपियर पे डाल दो. So ऐसा बहुत सारा literature है जो अभी भी ढूंढा जा रहा है. Emily Dickinson, she was scared of death. In her early age, she witnessed some death in the family. She got scared, and she started, living in a room, confined in a room. She would rarely go out. घर से बाहर rarely जाती थी. When she died in her early age, her sister Lavinia, when she was just exploring her personal room, she found 3,000 plus poetries. तो जो अलमीराज और कबर्ड्स और ये थे ना, 3000 से ज़्यादा पोइट्री. सो दीज थिंग्स आर फाउंड. धीरे धीरे वो मिलता है. अभी जो बहुत सारी क्या हुआ ना, देखो जो कंसंट्रेशन कैंप्स थे, होलोकास्ट में जो हिटलर के सोल्जर्स टॉर्चर कर रहे थे, यू नो दैट. Germany, when it was in the control of Hitler, they launched organized killing of Jews. 6 million Jews were killed. Anne Frank's diary, you must have heard about, right? So there were so many Jews, they wrote their personal stories and got that buried in the ground. So these things got back. People excavated, found a book, found a diary, found some locket, found some amulet, found something. These things. So they are being published and presented in exhibitions. तो इस तरह से literature बाहर आता है. कहीं ऑथेंटिकेशन है, कहीं ऑथेंटिकेशन नहीं है. ठीक है. नाउ द ड्रीम ऑफ द रूड इट्स क्लियर. प्लीज रिमेंबर इट हैज बीन आस्क्ड इन एग्जाम. द नेक्स्ट वन, सेकंड फिलॉसफी, सेम फिलॉसफी. ओके, द सेकंड फिलॉसफी. नाउ you tell me the answer. Is there anything that can give you positivity? If the root is crying, can we give the root some positivity? Second coming, Christ will come back. Okay, or there is a Hollywood movie, The Man from the Earth. You can watch a summarized version. Christ in modern age tells people that I am not God. People thought I am God, but I am not. उसके लिए बकायदा protest हुआ था that ban this movie. It is making us question Christianity. Philosophy is, then Rood comes to a point. It is the blood of Christ which is spilled over me. So, Christ का blood है मेरे ऊपर. I am Christ. Yes. We are looking for Holy Grail, for one small drop of blood and you are pure and pious. But then Rood says that why I am crying, I am no more an ordinary Rood, I am the Christ myself. Christ का blood है मेरे ऊपर. I am Christ. I have become the part of Christ. I am also divine and heavenly. No more ordinary, no more earthly. मैं भी वो हो गया हूँ. That's a philosophy. It is actually a great philosophy. You became the part of that process. Even it was against your wish, you never wanted to be. But then you and Christ are inseparable. अब आप और Christ अलग नहीं हो सकते. जॉन डन पढ़ा है? जॉन डन? No? एक couple था. वो garden में बैठा हुआ था. So there was a couple in the garden. Then a bee comes, stings the girl, sucks the blood, then stings the, yeah exactly. अब वो सीधा flea पढ़ाऊंगा तो फिर विनीत पांडे स्टाइल कहाँ रहेगा? फिर वो मक्खी, मधुमक्खी, that bee stings the boy, sucks the blood. What will be an ordinary emotion? मधुमक्खी कहा जाए कैसा लगता है? Good, heavenly. वास्प काटा किसी ने कभी? टांटे वाटे खाया अभी? भावरे ने काटा है ना? मुझे तो बहुत काटता है, बहुत काटता है. वो तो लाल वाले ने भी काटा हुआ है. हाँ सीरियसली पैर जाम हो गया था. कोलगेट टूथपेस्ट लगा लगा के घूम रहे थे. हाँ एंड सम आयरन थिंग. यहाँ पे काट गया था, आँख का सब एकदम वो बन गया था ब्रेड पकौड़ा. What will be the normal philosophy for ordinary people? You will curse it, you may try to kill it, है ना? And it will technically spoil your moment, spoil your moment. आपका पूरा moment spoiled हो जाएगा. But John Donne says, your blood, my blood, in the stomach of the bee, mixed, inseparable. तुम और हम अमर हो गए हैं. Try this with a dog. This is John Donne. This is literature, the beauty of literature. वो क्या कह रहा है? That you are different, I am different. I have my body, you have my body, but in this universe, at least there is a place where we have become one. हाँ, inseparable. तुम्हारा खून, मेरा खून एक ही है. Later it was copied by Nana Patekar in a movie where he calls two people, you know, either आओ, two religion. Then he mixes the blood and says inseparable. But थोड़ा उसका aggressive था, नहीं तो John Donne was romantic. तो वो John Donne था, वो Nana Patekar था. Now, so the philosophy is that this is the blood and me, Rood, now we have one. So here, This rood has a positive side, that now the rood itself is Christ. So if they ask you a question that at the end of this poetry, who is Christ? Rood itself has become Christ. वो अपने आप को ही Christ बोलता है कि मैं ही Christ हूँ. And yes, that's the reason वो this structure, this wooden icon, symbol, it is holy. Anybody Christian? No. Conjuring नहीं देखी, Conjuring 1, 2, 3. बहुत काम आता है ये. बहुत काम की चीज. In the name of the Father, the Holy Spirit, Holy Trinity concept. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Then in Hinduism we have Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. There are some all these things connected. Now let's go for other works. There are some other works. वो भी हमें लिखने हैं. कुछ points लिखने हैं आपको. Write down some factual details. Wife's Lament. These all works are anonymous. The Wife's Lament. Anonymous, no writers. Here the lady is crying. Her husband is going for work. Mention this. This lady is crying. Her husband is not in the city, he is away. So it is a poetry where the partner or somebody is separated and the lady is missing him, lady is crying. So this is one of the first reference where characters are taken as husband, wife, or as couple or partners. So wife, she is crying because her husband is away. सखी वो मुझसे कह के जाते. किसका है ये? हाँ, यशोधरा. हिंदी लिटरेचर पढ़ा आपने? Great. This man, sorry, I should not say the man. Siddharth. Then he was a man. Siddharth left his wife in midnight, went in search of enlightenment, then found knowledge, enlightenment, became Buddha, Gautam Buddha. He was Siddharth to Gautam Buddha. So he left his wife in the midnight. बिना बताए आधी रात को उठे, घर छोड़ के चले गए. Who was Siddharth? A prince. So means even if you are a prince, you do not have that peace. राजकुमार को क्या कमी है? But the peace of mind, it is not dependent on your financial condition. A prince felt that I am living a life which is meaningless, so he just one midnight made a plan and just escaped, just left his wife, and then goes for exploration, searching things, looking for enlightenment. Finally gets enlightened. कहाँ पे ज्ञान प्राप्त हुआ था उन्हें? सारनाथ, बोध गया हुआ था ना? सारनाथ में ज्ञान प्राप्त हुआ था. सारनाथ में फर्स्ट सरमन है, पहला उपदेश है. किसी पेड़ के नीचे प्राप्त हुआ था ना, वो बिहार में है. That's बोध गया. So he got the enlightenment. The first thing that he did after getting enlightenment was he came back to meet his wife. His disciples were angry that you have left that life, married life, civilized life. We people are in exile. We people are following sainthood. Why are you going back? So when he returns, he finds out the situation of his wife is worst. Yashodhara. That's a Hindi literature reference. सखी वो मुझसे कह के जाते तो क्या मुझको पग बाधा पाते. Like he should have told me, I'm married, I have some rights, I do deserve, I have an existence. At least he should have told me. बता के तो जाते. The poetry is like this, that I myself would have accompanied him, or maybe I myself would have celebrated his departure, but at least I did deserve a word. मुझे कुछ तो बोलना चाहिए था ना, सीधा चले गए आप. So he returns when she is very angry. So he says, see, when I left you, I had no knowledge. But then I got enlightenment. And the enlightenment made me realize that life is incomplete without you, without wife, without women. So he says, हाँ तो जब छोड़ के गया था तो knowledge नहीं था, enlightenment नहीं था. जब मिला तो सबसे पहले तुम्हारे पास है. That's why I became Buddha. Got it? So just like the same thing, a wife is crying for his separated husband. Husband is away. So it is a beautiful poetry, but it is in 53 lines. So one of the shortest poetry in Anglo-Saxons. Just remember the title. No need to read anything. बहुत small works हैं, इसमें ज़्यादा depth में जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Beowulf we have done, right? I'll write it once again for you. Beowulf we have done. The name of the king who calls him King Hrothgar. It is a question of exam. He was the king of Danes. Name of the tribe? Danes. King of Danes. Name of the demon? Grendel. Remember this thing. You'll get the printouts also. आपको printouts भी मिलेंगे. This is also called the first English epic poem. Old English. English. The first English epic poem. Original Anglo-Saxon epic भी बोलते हैं. The first English is German English, Old English, which is not actually English. Name of the poem, Beowulf. It is also called the first Anglo-Saxon epic. First Anglo-Saxon epic. The story is set in Denmark, current day Denmark. Earlier it was led by the Danes, tribe, Danes. Now, the next one. Again, we have no author for Beowulf. Beowulf has no author, no authentication of the author. Next one, Seafarer. इनमें से किसी की भी लाइन या कोटेशंस में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. Philosophical work, old sailor, a narration by old sailor who is very old and is preparing for death. This poetry is one of the first poetry that deals with nostalgia. Old sailor, he has lived his life. तो कोई पुराना नाविक है, बहुत एज में हो गया है, and he knows he's going to die. So he's just recalling his past life, which is nostalgia. Technically, it will be used in modern age. This style is also used in modern age. Nostalgia, flashback, these kind of things. So no need to read anything, just talks about life, death, philosophy of life. This poetry is philosophical. It talks about life, death, and philosophy of life. What is life? One of the biggest philosophical question. What is life? Then, put the title. The first English writer. Cadmon. The first English author, Cadmon. The only surviving poetry we have is Cadmon's hymns. He wrote some collection of poetries, religious poetries. Cadmon's hymns. Hymns, bhajan, religious songs, offerings. Christian songs, religious. The another leading writer, Bede. Cadmon's hymns is the only work that is surviving. So sometimes they say he is the first English writer. It is not 100% authenticated. But from exam point of view, you can write it. If it is asked in exam, we can defend it. ठीक है? But in, talking about the proper knowledge, no, Cadmon is not the only man. There are people. Because again, there is no confirmation. It is Cadmon's hymn. Bede gave a reference of Cadmon. कोई 100% authenticity नहीं है. But it has some 90% authenticity, so technically it can be taken like that. The next one we have Bede, monk, saint. He was a famous man, a monk, a saint. Famous work, Bede's death song. Bede's death song. Just a minute. Ji. A question? Bede's death song? There was a question? कुछ पूछना है? It's just the story of a man who is lying on his deathbed and is recalling his life. Again, nostalgia. Story of a man who is lying on his deathbed, अपने मृत्यु शैया पे है, which is called deathbed, and is recalling his life. Bede's death song. अभी King Alfred, King Ethelbert, उनके बारे में लिखना है. Bede's death song. So a death song of a man who was lying in a deathbed and was waiting for his death, also recalling his life. So it's a normal thing that when you get very old and you know you're going to die, so you actually recall your life. आप अपने जीवन को याद करते हो. Next. Cynewulf. See, technically there is no authenticity of his works. There is no authenticity of his works. कोई guarantee नहीं है that it is written by Cynewulf only. There are some works which are attributed to him, some religious poetries, but no guarantee. The famous works, Juliana, religious works. Cynewulf is an author. Famous work, Juliana, religious poetry. The Fates of the Apostles. Some other works, no need to write. Then, a book that deals with history. Clear? लिख लिया यहाँ पे? Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Anonymous. Believed to be the first English history. Believed to be the first English history. It was written during the time of King Alfred the Great. So it is not written by King Alfred. It is believed that it was written by the time King Alfred. Ninth century. I told you, 850 that they became very strong. King Alfred was ruling, the proper, most strong or the strongest Anglo-Saxon king. It is not written by King Alfred. It is written by the timing of King Alfred. And King Alfred is the first man to have a title, the Great. Like we use these words, Khali the Great, Akbar the Great. So the first ever person to use the title, the Great, King Alfred the Great. This chronicle deals with the Battle of Hastings. This chronicle deals with the Battle of Hastings. The next one, Alfred, next writer. It was 9th century. The timing of the work. No authentication. The next one, Alfred. Famous work, Lives of the Saints. Not very important, यहाँ से questions नहीं होंगे. Most important is Wife's Lament, Dream of the Rood, Beowulf, then Bede's, his famous work, Death Song, Cadmon's Hymns. These things have been repeatedly asked. Come again? वो जो सारे लिखे हैं दोबारा, जो बहुत important है. ठीक है, give me some time. I'll give you a recap, don't worry. I'll have to make you write some important pointers, historical pointers. Okay, now the characteristics of Anglo-Saxon poetry, especially their references they have used. The first thing, the use of alliteration. Who will tell me what is alliteration? An example, when the sounds are used repeatedly. So if you're using the consonant sounds, it's alliteration. If you repeat vowel sounds, it's assonance. Simple example, O Wild West Wind, WWW. It's alliteration. और बताओ? Better, bitter, better, butter. Better, butter, better, but okay. Tongue twister है तो. हाँ, good example. और इनको फिर हिंदी बताओ. हाँ, she sells, she shore, बहुत बढ़िया. SS, good. और अरे क्या बात है, चंदू के चाचा. हाँ, one of the finest example. चारू चंद्र की चपल किरणें, बहुत सही. चंदू के चाचा से भी हाँ, अच्छा. I had Hindi literature by 12th, so हमारे सर लिखवाते थे चारू चंद्र की चपल किरणें खेल रही हैं जलथल में. हाँ, चारू चंद्र की चपल किरणें, चंचल किरणें, चपल चंचल इज सेम. खड़क सिंह के खड़कने से खड़कती हैं खिड़कियाँ, खिड़कियों के खड़कने से खड़कता है खड़क सिंह. समझ समझ के समझ को समझो, समझ समझना भी एक समझ है. समझ समझ के जो ना समझा मेरी समझ में वो ना समझ है. इट्स अ सॉन्ग ना, ना समझ ना समझ मुझे. सो फर्स्ट ना समझ मुझे, मेरी समझ तो तेरी समझ की समझ से बाहर है. इसमें रिपीटिशन भी है, alliteration, repetition. So these poetries are called alliterative romances. These poetries are called alliterative romances. So please remember, this is medieval style poetry. Alliterative romances. यहाँ पे alliteration बहुत use होगा. One of the famous method to identify an Anglo-Saxon poetry. The another way of identifying Anglo-Saxon poetry is the use of archaic language, old language. Then the use of caning. उसके बाद use of caning. Caning is simply a word defined using hyphen. Students, home. Do you understand something? Can you make a word? Caning is simply used to define a word using a hyphen. It's easy. So what I want to say, what should be the right word if I have to take a word where students live as having their own house? Hostel. So hostel को कैसे बोल सकते हैं? Students home. और बताओ? Tell me. Whale road. Whale कौन से रोड पे चलती है? Ocean, sea, simple. और बनाओ कुछ वर्ड, शाबाश. Try, come on. Phone. हाँ, good, बहुत बढ़िया. फूड और स्टोर को जोड़ दो और बना दो एक अच्छा सा वर्ड, फूड हाउस, फूड स्टोर, बन जाएगा रेस्टोरेंट समथिंग. नाउ मेंशन दिस, द रेफरेंस ऑफ, what are the other options in this poetry? These Anglo-Saxon poetries were highly descriptive. The other style of these Anglo-Saxon poetry was highly descriptive. Highly descriptive. What is descriptive, narrative? There are various types of poetries. Descriptive, narrative, subjective, objective, and then comes the fifth strongest part, confessional. So we just have to deal with descriptive, but we'll give you some idea about these things. 5 major types of poetries: descriptive, narrative, subjective, objective, confessional. Good, बहुत बढ़िया. हाँ, you can write in one line. When I'll teach you romantic poetry, I'll teach you all these things in proper detail, but right now you can just write single line. Subjective, when author talks about himself. When author talks about his own sufferings, his pain, his love story, anything. So author is the center. John Keats, he's talking about himself, my heart aches, a drowsy numbness pains. When he's talking about himself, subjective. Sometimes in the same poetry, a poet can become objective and subjective. Objective when the poet is talking about something else. Ode to evening, ode to skylark, ode to Grecian urn. किसी और के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. But in that objective poetry also sometimes the author can switch to subjective note. For example, P.B. Shelley. He talks about Ode to West Wind, one of the finest work in English literature. But then there are 4 or 5 lines where he switches to the personal note. Oh, lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I've fallen upon the thorns of life. I bleed. A heavy weight of hearts that chain and board. Once too like thee, tameless, swift and proud. So, बात करते करते कहता है मुझे भी ले चलो. Skylark से बात करेगा तब भी बोलेगा that I also want to be like you. So, objective, subjective, they can switch. But then what is narrative? Narrative poetry style is mostly used when a poetry has a story. Ballad form. इसे ballad poetry भी कहते हैं जिसमें narration बहुत हो. Subjective, objective we have done. Ballad poetry. But please remember, ballad poetry and narrative poetry are not same thing. They are connected. It should not be like that, okay, narrative poetry means only ballad. It can be anything. But narration hoga, it should have a story. It should have some big narration. जैसे Mahabharat. So is it written in prose or poetry form? Poetry form में या prose form में? महाभारत किस में है? पोइट्री या प्रोज? एपिक है, महाकाव्य है, काव्य, महाकाव्य, एपिक. It's poetry form. So it is poetry, but it has a complete story, narration. So technically every 3rd line, 10th line, 15th line, the story goes on. जो story है, it keeps on developing. Story doesn't stop at a place. But then what is descriptive? Descriptive, when a writer elaborates each and everything which is sometimes unnecessary. To give you a picturesque example, to make his poetry pictorial, writer describes each and everything which is sometimes not necessary. For example, Anglo-Saxon poetry. If they are talking about the sword of King Arthur, they are taking 300 lines. 300 लाइन में उसके पोइट्री में sword की बात हो रही है. The shining of the sword was like that. अब सोचो किसी की तलवार के बारे में आपने 300 लाइन लिखा है, तो फिर mostly romantic writers sometimes use it. For example, the description of Padmavati in Padmavat by Malik Muhammad Jaisi. So it takes all efforts to describe her beauty. तो वो एक एक चीज, मतलब अगर बिंदी भी है तो उस पर 10 लाइन है with simile and metaphors. That is descriptive. The shield of Achilles, the shield is being narrated. The shield was like that, this was like that. Your daily soap, how the TV channels daily soap introduce a new character. TV soap नहीं देखते हो, नाटक देखते हो ना, अनुपमा, one of the biggest torture. देश की सारी औरतों को टीवी पे लगा के खुद उसने मर्सिडीज ले रखी है. कैसे दिखाते नया कैरेक्टर टीवी में आया? शूज, यहां तक आके नेक्स्ट अगले दिन Why this build up is required? सीधा बता दो ना नया कैरेक्टर है. एक्साइटमेंट पे छोड़ना होता है कि नेक्स्ट डे आप देखने आओ. तो वाई अच्छा कैसे चल रहा है एंड ऑल, ये क्या जरूरत है? बट दिस इज डिस्क्रिप्टिव. सो टेक्निकली दीज एंग्लो-सैक्सन रोमांसेस वर मोर डिस्क्रिप्टिव. बहुत बातचीत, बहुत नरेशन. नॉर्मली having the poetry wife's lament, that was of 53 lines, right? This is a kind of victory. Anglo-Saxon poetry normally have 10,000 lines. 10,000 line बहुत average है. Most of the big poetries अभी नाम लिखेंगे, कुछ और भी नाम लिखने हमें. 40,000 lines. इतनी बड़ी बड़ी lines हैं. One more question, a very good question from Kriti. It is not a hard and fast rule that if the poetry is narrative, it is not descriptive. If the writer knows how to have a balance, descriptive poetry, narrative poetry, subjective, objective, it can be merged together. It can be merged together. For example, Paradise Lost. It describes hell in detail, which is the part of it, but then he also has a balance. The story goes on, story doesn't stop. So unnecessary description जो है वो over descriptive होगा. Milton में Paradise Lost में Milton becomes subjective. Milton is equally objective. Then the fifth part of poetry, which is a very different part, confessional poetry, where writers write something which is confessional. A simple question, what is the difference between autobiographical and confessional? कौन बताएगा? What is the difference between autobiography, if he's talking about his life, he's talking about confession, same life? Confession कोई particular... Anybody who is inspired from somebody's autobiography? कोई कहानी वानी पढ़ी किसी की autobiography? Wings of Fire, APJ अब्दुल कलाम, और चलो अच्छी है, और Orlando, autobiography of Virginia Woolf. Vita Sackville West ने तो डिनाई कर दिया था कि मेरा कोई रिलेशन नहीं इसके साथ. Which is more real, confessional or autobiographical? Then why it is called confessional? इसको autobiography बोल सकते हैं ना, memoir बोल सकते हैं, memory studies वैसे भी चल रहे हैं. Confessional is good or bad? I have to make a confession. मुझे भूख लगी है. Is it a confession? What do you expect in a confession? Something which is dark. So confessional is yes. The simple meaning, the difference that we use for autobiographical and confessional is confessional writings actually will damage your image. So if a writer has this kind of daring, and he knows or she knows that whatever I'm writing is going to go for a backfire, it will fire back. That is confessional writing. Kamala Das, the leading confessional writer in Indian literature, spoiled her life because of confessional writing. The famous writer, Professor Eunice D'Souza said, Mrs. Das' main problem is that she does not know when to stop. She was given threats, she was isolated, people stopped calling her in universities for seminars, lectures, then all literary circles, they all just left her alone. So Kamala Das had to face a lot being a bold writer of 1960s India. Because people are not ready to listen to. And if you confess something and it is obviously going against you, so they have an image. आपका image बन जाएगा. Kamala Das, anybody, how many of you read Kamala Das? 1, 2, 3, 4? बहुत sense लिखा उन्होंने. But yes, she was praised by the foreign writers. Now, another history book, religious history. एक बार पहले इसको लिखो. Geoffrey of Monmouth. Historia Regum Britannia. Historia Regum Britannia. Then Historia Regum Britannia, one of the first history. Then Historia Ecclesiastica. Should I go for next one? सिर्फ इनके नाम याद करने हैं, titles. No need to go in the depth. हो सकता है कोई question now. Till now no question. Historia Regum Britannia. History of Britain. These are some histories. Then Bede's Historia Ecclesiastica, religious history. Historia Ecclesiastica, ecclesiastic, religious poetry, religious writings. Then the translations. The next one, Bede. Bede is writer. Bede's apostrophe S. Bede is writer. Historia Ecclesiastica, history of religion. So during that time, churches and all, early history hai. Then this one, Historia Regum Britannia. Geoffrey of Monmouth. Geoffrey is the name, Monmouth is the area. Geoffrey of Monmouth. इनके initial introductions यही हैं. मैं उस place का ये. Now Geoffrey of Monmouth rewrites Historia Regum Britannia, history of Britain, Britain's reign. Then Bede goes for Historia Ecclesiastica, and then Alfred G. हाँ. King Alfred's early translations. King Alfred's early translations. King Alfred was also a translator, the early translator. हाँ खुद ही किंग अल्फ्रेड ने खुद ट्रांसलेट किया हुआ है. किंग अल्फ्रेड की ट्रांसलेशंस हैं. नेक्स्ट बैटल ऑफ माल्डन. दो वर्क्स और हैं. बैटल ऑफ माल्डन fought in 1991. This is the thing. Battle of Maldon. First example of war poetry. इसलिए मैंने इसमें सेलेक्टिव चीजें देखने की कौन किस चीज का फर्स्ट एग्जाम्पल है. फर्स्ट एग्जाम्पल ऑफ वॉर पोइट्री. हाँ, it is the name of the poetry, unclaimed poetry. Writer is not sure. Published 1991. So this was the time of the war, Battle of Maldon. War poetry example. Anybody who has read war poetry, war poets? No? So war poetry is also a genre connected to literature. Rupert Brooke, one of the highly celebrated war poet. W. Yeats called him the most handsome man. He fought as a soldier. The First World War. His famous poet, इस बार question है paper में, I taught war poetry, इस बार भी question है. He said, if I die out of England, wherever my body will be buried, that land will become England forever. जहाँ पे भी मैं मरूंगा, जहाँ पे भी मेरी body दफन होगी, वो उतनी जमीन हमेशा के लिए England हो जाएगी. Because he says England has made me. So me, my life, my body, my soul, my blood, it is all England. So if I die abroad fighting for my country, even after death, my grave, my body, it will always sing for England. That kind of patriotic poetry. During the World War I, this poetry was circulated, hand-to-hand circulation हुआ था. Soldiers को बांटी जाती थी कॉपियाँ कि ये लो देशभक्ति. पढ़ा होगा ना How They Brought Her Warrior Dead, motivational poetry है. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Tennyson. Then Rudyard Kipling's The Last of the Light Brigade. वॉर पोइट्रीज बहुत अच्छी अच्छी आती हैं. एनीबडी हैज हर्ड अबाउट विल्फ्रेड ओवन? आई एम द एनिमी, यू किल्ड माई फ्रेंड, आई न्यू यू इन दिस डार्क. दो फौजी आपस में दुश्मन नहीं होते हैं, उनकी गवर्नमेंट्स होती हैं. तो वो कह रहा है कि वो मरने के बाद सोल्जर जो है वो जा रहा है आसमान में, स्वर्ग में. सॉरी, ही गोज टू हेल एक्चुअली, बिकॉज दे आर सोल्जर्स. वो कह रहा है वी हैव किल्ड अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल, सो वी आर गोइंग टू हेल ओनली. He meets enemy soldier, and what kind of conversation you can have the soul of enemy soldier after death? You don't even know that person. You have no personal enmity, no gussa, no ladai, nothing. It is just the orders. So he says, I am the enemy, you killed my friend, I knew you in this dark. So these soldiers, they were actually soldiers. So if they talk about war poetry, the first ever example of war poetry comes from here. ये example है. We have to write 2-3 lines. इसके लिए लिखना है. Wilfred Owen was not going to war, he was just writing. So he was inspired by another writer, Siegfried Sassoon. So he was writing poetry, war poetry, but he was not having that depth. So he had a word with Sassoon. Sassoon said, oh, okay, you want to have depth in your writing? Go, join army, feel the war. War के ऊपर लिखना है तो war को महसूस करो. He got enlisted in army. उसने जाके फटाक से अपना नाम लिखवा दिया. That was the time of World War. अब नाम तो लिखवा दिया. इट इज ईजी टू गेट एनरोल्ड इन आर्मी ड्यूरिंग वॉर. वॉर में जल्दी ले लेंगे वो. इफ यू आर फिट एंड फाइन वो ले लेंगे. पीपल डू वॉलंटियर. अर्नेस्ट हेमिंगवे वाज अ विनर ऑफ मिलिट्री क्रॉस. बाय चॉइस लड़ने चला गया था. रियलिटी ऑफ वॉर क्या है? व्हाट इज द रियलिटी ऑफ वॉर? खाना नहीं खा पाओगे. दुश्मन ये थोड़ी बोलेगा कि ओनली 10 to 5 फाइट है, ब्रेकफास्ट कर लो लाइन में लग के. You are sleepy, 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden a bomb comes, a missile comes, and bullets are just... So you don't even know which bullet is coming for you. You can't eat, you can't concentrate, you can't even move. You'll be freezing there. You won't move. He starts crying. He writes a letter to his mother that Sassoon trapped me, and it's hell. I want to leave it. The war poetry is also called trench poetry. Then he was not given a chance to leave, because during the fight you can't leave. Then having some peace time, he got a chance to leave army. He came back to his home, but realized that he was suffering from the trauma called shell-shocked. So he was missing army. अब उसे army miss करने लगा, क्योंकि उसकी normal life में से वो ordinary लगने लगा. He came from that heroic life. He went back. There he died as a martyr. He was protecting some bridge using a machine gun, killed a lot of people, but then when he got injured, he wrote a letter to his mother that I did not kill anybody. I just shot one man. That was a mistake. He said, मुझे माफ कर देना. I don't want to go to hell. I have not killed anybody. But he had killed many people. He had machine gun position. So his other friends told that he killed a lot of people. These are the war poets. Siegfried Sassoon wrote open letter. The open declaration of independence, declaration by a soldier. बहुत हो गया. मैं नहीं लड़ूंगा. So he was pressurized to take that letter back. He said, why should we fight? You getting this? So war poetry, literature, war literature, it itself has a strong genre and is the part of modernism. Modern studies में आएगा. The death of the hero. The Stephen Crane का red badge of courage. एक बंदा जाता है लड़ाई करने, उसके सारे दोस्त शहीद हो जाते हैं, and that man is kind of coward. So he returns. So when he returns, people are just looking at him with a scornful eye, hate that this man is coward. Why? Because he doesn't have any injury. कह रहा लड़ाई में गया, एक भी चोट नहीं लगी, तो फिर क्या लड़ाई? Suppose गेम खेलने जा रहे और कपड़ों पे मिट्टी नहीं लगी, तो next again he goes for war, and this time he wants to get hit. उसका टारगेट है कैसे भी एक चोट लग जाए, so that I can carry my wound as a pride that okay, I also fought. The red badge of courage. I'll teach you war literature. Please remember this. Your first example, I write down 2-3 lines. लिखो. It deals with the fight between Anglo-Saxons and Vikings. So ये भी एक important question बन जाएगा. The fight between Anglo-Saxons versus Vikings. Vikings Netflix पे सीरीज आ रखी है अभी, वालाहाला. Next, The Owl and the Nightingale. The Owl and the Nightingale. This is the first example of the Owl and the Nightingale. The Owl and the Nightingale. First example of debate poetry. First example of debate poetry. Debate. शास्त्रार्थ. वैसे शास्त्रार्थ के लिए अच्छा वर्ड नहीं है debate. Debate. Example of debate poetry. Owl and the Nightingale are having a debate. This poetry also deals with a prayer for soul of King Henry. A prayer for soul of King Henry. Same. This poetry has unidentified narrator. The poetry is narrated by unidentified narrator. The poetry is narrated by unidentified narrator. So this is again very important. If your narrator is unidentified, then what is your narration? Trusted or not? This poetry has a narrator. He's under a tree. He's just listening to them, eavesdropping. Owl and Nightingale are having a debate. This unknown person understands the debate and has written the poetry. Unidentified narrator talks about this debate. So if the narrator himself is unidentified, how far you can trust that narration? Just a question. जो कहानी सुना रहा है हमें उसका पता ही नहीं हो कौन है, तो आप कहानी पे कितना ट्रस्ट करोगे? Skeptical or it's universal, but narrator ही confirm नहीं है. Will you trust the story or not? Just raise your hand if you'll trust. Narrator confirm नहीं है, 2 लोग trust करेंगे, बाकी लोग trust 3-4 trust करेंगे, बाकी लोग नहीं trust करेंगे. क्यों नहीं करेंगे? क्योंकि हमें narrator नहीं पता है. ठीक है? But again, this is not a proper base. If you do not know the narrator, the story doesn't have any worth. It has. But this is a postmodern technique where this is called unreliable narrator. So I just wanted to talk about that reference. I've picked this. Unreliable narrator. So जहाँ पे unidentified narrator उसे क्या बोलते हैं? In a postmodern way, talking about the metafiction style, unreliable narrator, where the narrator himself is not reliable. How many of you have read a famous work by Agatha Christie? The murder of Roser Ackroyd. Anybody who is fan of Agatha Christie? You? Okay, who is the narrator? Yes. So in this story, the murder of Roser Ackroyd, the narrator who is telling the story of a murder is actually the murderer. This is called unreliable narrator. Oblique narration का part है, postmodern reference. इसलिए याद करवा रहा हूँ, क्योंकि यहाँ पे एंग्लो सेक्शन के फर्स्ट एग्जाम्पल्स हैं. In which book we have unidentified narrator, in which book we have a reference of war poetry, in which book we have an ordinary couple, separation theme. ये pointers की वजह से ये बता कर रहे हैं. Normal reading की बजाय we have to go for comparative reading so that we can take clues, we can connect. When I will teach you Canterbury Tales, the first line of Canterbury Tales says, April is the month of showers. The first line of Wasteland, April is the cruelest month. How it is connected? Because in between there is literature, there is life. So I'll connect those things. Unreliable narrator. समझ में आया? जो narrator है story का. This is the finest example of unreliable narrator. The man who is narrating himself is a murderer. So he will tell the story which is not reliable. आप rely नहीं कर सकते. Agatha Christie पढ़ा ना? The mother of crime fiction. Guinness Book record of being bestseller for 16 years. Agatha Christie, the queen of, the mother of crime fiction. इन्होंने ऐसी चीजें लिखी हुई हैं 16 years तक she was bestseller. Who? This woman. Agatha Christie. इनके ऊपर तो movies बनी हुई हैं. In fact, people used to take her as a mysterious character. Agatha Christie. 16 years tak, that's a Guinness Book record. Modern, early moderns. One of our famous work, Mousetrap, is still being performed. देखा किसी ने? नहीं देखा? Anybody who can tell me the story Mousetrap? A reference which will be used in Hamlet, but that's not Agatha Christie's. Nobody knows the ending of Mousetrap. Nobody. It's not on internet. आप नहीं ढूंढ सकते. You just have to watch it. The only way out is to watch it. And when you watch it, the actors after the performance come on stage and with folded hands they'll be requesting you to not to reveal the suspense. वो आके बोलेंगे प्लीज किसी को मत बताइएगा, प्लीज स्पॉयलर्स मत दीजिएगा. So Mousetrap is one of the finest work ever by Agatha Christie. It's being performed. बहुत सारा लिखा उन्होंने, बहुत सारी movies बनी हुई हैं. She herself disappeared for 11 days. चलो, that is not very important. इनका personal life है, but ये गायब हो गए थे 11 days के लिए. क्या हुआ? She disappeared for 11 days. Her husband was taken in the custody because she was a big name. So there was no clue about her whereabouts. So husband was taken by the FBI, by the police and others. And they were searching, where is Agatha Christie? All the newspapers, you know the media, they pick these kind of things. So it was everywhere, Agatha Christie missing, Agatha Christie missing. After 11 days, Agatha Christie was found in Egypt, Cairo, in a hotel. She was writing some another story. She wanted to have some mental peace. So she just disappeared. और इसके ऊपर भी किताब है. There is a book on this thing. Jared Cade has written. Jared Cade has written Missing 11 Days of Agatha Christie. हाँ, वो राइटर है. उसने उस पर भी किताब लिख दी, मिसिंग 11 डेज ऑफ अगाथा क्रिस्टी. ये तो लेजेंडरी राइटर्स हैं. आर्थर कॉनन डॉयल, शेरलॉक होम्स वाला. क्वेश्चंस आते हैं वहाँ से भी. हु इज मिस्टर वॉटसन, इनके कैरेक्टर्स से क्वेश्चन आते हैं. आई विल बी टीचिंग यू दीज थिंग्स. ये भी पार्ट है आपका स्पाई फिक्शन. ओके, सो नाउ वी आर डन विद एंग्लो सेक्शंस. नो नीड टू गो फॉर अननेसेसरी रेफरेंसेज. Okay, just to make Anglo-Saxons big, I can teach you 30-40 more works. ठीक है, बहुत सारे नाम हैं. Nutbrains Maid, Wedseth, Robinson, the story of this man, Robin Hood. बहुत कुछ है Anglo-Saxons में. But we have to go for the selective ones which are very important. So tomorrow I'll be asking rapid fire questions. Prepare these things. If I get to know something new that should be added, I myself will make you write. So we are done with Anglo-Saxons. Leave one page, then only you go for next age of Chaucer. So I'll be solving some papers. If I get to know something new, मैं खुद लिखवा दूंगा आपको. Then write down this thing. This is important. This is I missed. so we will write those things again. In any situation, these notebooks will save you. All my content, all the topics that I teach here are actually based on PYQs. I keep an eye on those questions. So पढ़ाते वक्त मुझे याद होता है कहाँ से क्या questions है, because I've gone for those PYQs again and again. It is one of my regular practice. So it clicks my mind, हाँ, Owl Nightingale question है, yeah, I know that. Maldon से आया हुआ है. So these things are actually PYQs. So in any situation, make sure that the notebook is printed here in your brain. कुछ भी अगर याद हो ना हो, copy जरूर याद होनी चाहिए. First attempt JRF करना है, copy. सुकीर्ति ने ऑल इंडिया रिकॉर्ड बनाया है, आपके पिछले बैच से पिछले बैच में थी. पिछले बैच का तो एग्जाम ही टल गए, तो लेट्स सी हु क्वालिफाइज एंड ऑल. और शी वाज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट बेंचर एंड वन डे शी वाज क्राइंग. उसका इंटरव्यू देखना आप, because everybody was answering rapid fire question. She was having bad health, she couldn't revise, so she was lacking for the first ever time in the rapid fire. Otherwise she used to answer all the questions. So I was asking questions, she started crying and I asked what happened. Then she said, sir, answer nahi aa rahe, feeling bad. That kind of madness. Answer nahi aa raha hai, bahut bura lag raha hai. तो उस स्कोर पे जाना है, 71% पे जाना है. तो नॉर्मल JRF 67-68 पे जाएगा. टारगेट ले लो. आउट ऑफ 100 इंग्लिश में किसी भी हाल में 70 करना है, और उसके लिए वी विल टारगेट 90. वी विल ट्राई टू क्रॉस 90 प्लस, बट वी विल बी मोर श्योर अबाउट 90. दैट इतना तो पढ़ना है, दैट एटलीस्ट आउट ऑफ 100 90 तो आए ही आए, सो दैट इवन इफ समबडी इज नॉट दैट मच प्रिपेयर्ड, वो 70 पे आकर रुक जाए. बट 70 इज अगेन अ कंफर्म स्कोर टू क्वालिफाई. पेपर 1, some of you must be good at this subject. Sometimes people leave paper 1 that okay, I'll do it, I'll do that. Please don't do that. Be regular in class and learn from these teachers, because teaching in online on videos and teaching in offline are two different things. So you will have better learning in offline class. ये करते जाओ. JRF is all yours. कोई बड़ी चीज नहीं है JRF. करने वाला करता ही है. And कल I'll be asking all these questions, I'll be asking your names. Tips पे होना चाहिए. आप कल वाला वीडियो देख लेना, so that you're prepared. अभी छोटी छोटी क्लासेस हैं, so that you are on track. फिर उसके बाद बहुत स्पीडीली क्लास शुरू हो जाएंगी. कैंटरबरी टेल्स एंड चौसर जहाँ आएगा ना, वहाँ पे सिलेबस बड़ा हो जाएगा. Tomorrow I'll be teaching you Age of Chaucer. Okay? Most probably will be done by some minor writers also. कल चौसर के स्टार्टिंग कर देंगे. See you. Thank you.